Hey everyone, welcome back to ACT Math Quick Hits, where you can make this one small change and watch a video a day. Doesn't cost you any money, only costs you a little bit of time, and you're going to help improve your ACT math score. So there's a rundown of the math section of the ACT, and let's get back into it for today. Alright, so it gives us a function, the cube root of 2x minus 1, and then it asks which of the following expression is the inverse function. So that notation there with that like exponent that looks like a little -1, that just means the inverse function of the function provided to us. So for this one today, Desmos isn't going to really do us much good. It can help if we understand the relationship between inverse functions, meaning that the inputs for the original function would then become outputs in the inverse, and then vice versa. The outputs of the original become inputs for the inverse. And so we could then graph it and then try to look at a graph that lines up that way with our inputs and outputs being flipped. But because of the complexity of this graph, it's going to be kind of tough to do that. Like I said, it's not, Desmos could help us as long as we understand that relationship and then we kind of know what we're looking for. But by that point, like if we understand that relationship between functions, then it is probably faster for us just to calculate or just to algebraically find the inverse of the function. So the way we do that is we switch our inputs and our outputs and then solve for our output. So what we usually do when we talk about this in class is instead of calling it f of x, we call it y, right? Y just represents an output because then it becomes a lot easier to switch your inputs and your outputs. So I'm going to take the x, I'm going to take the y, and I'm going to switch where they're at. So I'm going to have x, let me change colors here, equals, and then I have that cube root of, and then 2, and now instead of times x, it becomes times y, right? So I switched the location of those x's and y's, and then now to find the inverse, we just solve for y. So there's a lot of algebraic operations happening here. So the first thing I would want to do is I would want to cube this. So I cube both sides, so I end up with x cubed, and then over here, right, my cube and my cube root cancel. So then I just have the 2y minus 1. And then now I just continue solving for y. It's much easier now that I got rid of that cube root. So I add 1 to both sides. So we have x cubed plus 1 equals 2y. And then the last step here is I divide both sides by that 2, right, to get that 2 to cancel. So I end up with my y being by itself. Yes, it's on the right, but that doesn't matter which side of the equation it's on. Right, so there's my x cubed plus 1 all over 2. Again, this is just kind of a formality, right? Remember, we're looking for the inverse function, and we started with function notation, right? So I shouldn't necessarily call it y. I should call it the inverse function, right? So that little f of -1 of x, and that equals x cubed plus 1 over 2. It doesn't really matter for this one because we see choice C, gives us that result, but it doesn't have that function notation. Like I said, there was more of a formality for this. So like I said, Desmos would kind of help. Again, assuming that we understand, how inverse functions are related to their original function. So it might be a little bit useful to, put all these into Desmos. Again, that would take some time. And, time sometimes is of the essence on the ACT. All right, so choice C was our correct answer. All right, well, thanks for watching, everyone. I know that math ACT isn't the most exciting stuff out there, but your future self is going to appreciate it if you like and subscribe. That way you can keep getting these quick hits, learn about the ACT, learn some math, and learn a Desmos hack when we can. Thanks, everyone.